when the blacks got civil rights, people didn't want to be assimilated anymore. I mean, people who cared about their children. Yeah, that was a coincidence.
They were like racist, you mean?
Well, social economic too. Yeah, it was racist.
You're a Yeki?
Right,
Are you a Yeki?
Yeah, they all hated us.
Are you a Yeki?
The blacks still don't understand. They can't see anti-Semitism when it's right in front of them. They don't understand what. I mean, they're blind to it. I mean, we're blind to racism sometimes. We are.
So you're a Yeki?
I'm a Yaki. Yeah.
So the Yeki.
I was taught to be always proud of the fact I was a Jew and a Yaki. And everybody hated the Yaki.
So you visited the Dar Torah and you took off your hat by Rabbi Castell's office out of the Yeki manners that you take off your hat when you come.
No, that's the normal manner in public places in America. And I grew up around Catholics. You have to take off your hat when you.
The Lubavitcher Rebbe said a story about a Yeki.
For humbleness, you put on a hat like a fig leaf.
The Lubavitcher Rebbe said a story about a Yeki rabbi who threw somebody out of his office. A Yeki rabbi.
Yeah.
Because the man came in and the Rebbe was joking about it.
Yeah,
but the man came in and took off his hat. But for Hasidim, it was funny because the opposite. You got to have a yarmulke.
Yeah.
Even Rabbi Kunin had the Federation wear yarmulkes when he met them. He said, "I'm a rabbi. You must wear yarmulkes when you sit by me," and they complied.
Of course. The Rebbe's, it's a sign of humility.
But Rabbi Castell asked you to wear a yarmulke, not a hat.
Yarmulke, I guess so.
And so the Bachers in 770...
you have to cover your head. A hat would have been okay, I think.
The Bachers in 770 weren't allowed to read which newspapers?
I went to a Farbrengen. The Bachers had compulsory attendance. They had to go, or they would be kicked out of school. I wasn't in the Torah.
The Bachrim were forced to go to the Farbrengen?
Oh yeah, 6,000 people. It was compulsory attendance. That's what I was told. They had to go. They were bored shitless. 6 hours of hearing the Rebbe in Yiddish when they don't understand Yiddish that well.
Who were these Bachrim? What nationalities? What were they coming from?
American, a lot of them. They were into outreach. Chabad was... the Rebbe was a genius in some ways. He found a market for something nobody wanted, which was genuine Hasidus, genuine Hasidus.
Spirituality.
Yeah, that's the correct word. Genuine Hasidus. Nobody thought it would sell in America. Nobody thought. Nobody even tried it. And the Rebbe figured out that it just had to be marketed. And it would sell in America just like it did anywhere else.
I see.
Huh?
He was right.
Yeah, of course, he was a genius in a way.
Because he knew people would believe anything.
That's right, especially because they didn't know anything. And actually, people who don't know anything are easier sometimes to reach initially than people who know too much. It's a tradition in Chabad that the people, like in the time of Ezra, or in the time of the Alter Rebbe too, that the Ami Haaretz is less of a problem than the doctor often. He's less of a problem, because he doesn't know anything.
Right.
He's less of a problem. The doctor thinks he knows more than he does.
So the boys in Yeshiva weren't allowed to read the Jewish press. Is that right? The Jewish press?
No, it was grounds for expulsion, I was told.
What was wrong with the Jewish press at the time?
It had too many different opinions, some of which were not Torah correct. And also it had Meir Gahani opinions, which Chabad had a weird relationship with Meir Gahani because they officially didn't approve of him, but unofficially a lot of them who were more real did approve of him, of course. I mean, he was in trouble with the government.
Because he was a militant firebrand, and the Rebbe didn't want that. He wanted to have
troublemaker.
Yeah, the Rebbe wanted to have a clean record.
Well, he had more brains, the Rebbe. He had more brains. He knew that. He knew that according to the understanding of the Torah, that you don't dare the government when the government is in a state of war or something like that. You don't do that. He had more brains than most Jewish leaders. Well, he was right. You don't dare the government. Meir Gahani was convinced that there would be a great persecution of the Jews because of the loss of the Vietnam War. He was convinced of that. He wasn't that because there were so many prominent anti-Vietnam War leaders that were Jewish. He was convinced there'd be a great anti-Semitic reaction in America.
Yeah, right after Hitler.
No, he was talking about the 60s.
60s, yeah.
A very large percentage of the troublemakers in Berkeley and Harvard and Columbia were Jews.
Right. Yeah, so he thought this was going to be terrible.
the backlash. But the Rebbe didn't do that. The Rebbe stayed out of that foolishness of opposing. The government was so rotten, but that's every government. I mean, the government understood that. My father understood it. My father understood it too. My sister became the government. She became an official in the government. My father understood, which is an ancient tradition with any sensible community, that the government is not, it's a necessary thing, but it's not exactly a friend at all. I mean, my father understood that. The history proves it. The government is not your friend.
Wow.
My father knew that. My mother was a little bit more difficult to discern. She sort of had a higher opinion of the government than my father did. My father was more realistic, I think.
Maybe she saw it useful.
Well, my mother had a positive attitude, in a way.
So the Lubavitch boys weren't allowed to eat the Hebrew National? Where was the Hebrew
There was
National?
a Hebrew National down on Empire. The Hada Torah kids couldn't go there. It wasn't glatt kosher. We know that. I know people, Kalbuckers, like David Montag, who preferred Hebrew National because it wasn't glatt kosher. Because Kalbuckers had, like you a little bit, have that a little bit. They had a contrary way of thinking.
But what's wrong with glatt kosher? Because it's not traditional, because it's above it.
Well, glatt kosher is more kosher, supposedly.
No, because
more
they don't
strictly kosher.
But they don't want to have anything to add on to halacha. They want it to be...
Yeah.
Is that the reason?
Yeah.
So they ate it out of principle.
No, I think, I always thought it was, they didn't want to be that, get that, okay, one, yeah. My opinion was, but that doesn't mean I can speak for anybody else, was because they didn't want to get that extremely tribal ethnic. They didn't want to do that. I mean, in a way it's good, but in another way it's bad.
Right.
Both. We're a weird tribal community.
And what else about Hadar Torah? You have any memories from Hadar Torah? You were able, you
only Tanya. They wouldn't let me study Gemara. I didn't go there. I couldn't go there.
You were able to sit in on
I only could go to Tanya.
And were you allowed to be part of
study Tanya.
Were you allowed to be part of the dormitory?
Well, I did not want to study Tanya because I wanted to learn Judaism, and at the time I thought Tanya wasn't Judaism because it's not in the halakha of any Jews except Chabad at that time. So I didn't consider it to be Judaism.
So what did you think Tanya was?
I thought it was Chabad.
Oh, just like mysticism or something?
Well, the other Hasidim said they didn't study it. I knew Satmar Hasidim who were always in between, kind of watching. At that time, Chabad and Satmar were sort of watching each other.
Like close by, you mean?
Huh?
Watching like close?
Well, Satmar was more viable then because that was bizarre.
What do you mean by viable? What does that mean?
They had a different opinion than Chabad.
Okay, but they were.
And in a way,
their
opinion was more correct.
But they liked the Tanya, though.
No.
Oh, they did not.
Only Chabad.
Okay.
Nobody else. At that time, nobody else. Only Chabad. Nobody but Chabad. You don't know about the Tanya? It's only Chabad.
I know the Tanya.
They used to study the Tanya.
Yeah, but why you? What about Yeshiva University?
Because they wanted to get 18-year-olds to be Chabad. They didn't want them. You know, the Satmar weren't allowed to marry Chabad. The Rebbe said
they never marry out. Satmar, it's not. They're not. No, because they're not compatible with other types.
They weren't compatible. They were Hungarian.
Once you have too many minhagim, if you have too many minhagim that are different, then it's already a problem, right? Am I right? Too many minhagim.
It's harder.
I don't even know if the Satmars intermarry within each other now because of the split.
That's been done?
Yeah, the two Rebbes.
No, that's like the Belzer when I lived in Crown Heights. The Belzers had one Rebbe, and the Rebbe died. I lived with a Belzer rabbi who was a brother or a first cousin of the Belzer in Israel. And when the older Belzer died, he wanted to pretend that he was entitled to be the Belzer Rebbe. But the Israeli one beat him out.
How?
Well, there was one Belzer that I lived with in Crown Heights. What was the Rokeos? The Rokeos.
Yeah, Rokeos. Yeah.
They were the Belzers. They weren't very big. They were in Crown Heights. Mm-hmm. They were in what is it called? Eastern Parkway.
Wow.
The Belzer.
What year were you in Hadar Torah?
I wasn't in Hadar Torah.
No, what year did you visit?
I was one half a day in Morristown. I was sent to Morristown.
What was it, the 60s or the 70s?
74.
74, okay, before my parents married.
Huh?
Before my parents got married, yeah.
Really? It was very interesting. The son of the dentist who introduced my mother to my father, her son was Lubavitcher in Crown Heights at the time. That's how crazy it all is. I knew him.
Rabbi, you met Rabbi Castell?
Oh yeah, he interviewed everybody at that time. He was the intake worker, or rabbi.
Oh, I see.
Lubavitcher Youth Organization.
And you remember any of what the guys would smoke on the steps of Hadar Torah? They had like some type of special cigars, maybe?
No.
Nothing?
I remember that they didn't like, at that time they all had, more than anything you heard in Berkeley or San Francisco, they had all this tittering about Kalbach being a womanizer, which we didn't have in California in that way, which was like out of control, Lashon Hora, I thought.
Oh, I see.
They had that all over the place. I mean, Kalbach, because he didn't have a mahitza, he didn't care about the mahitza. And Kalbach said, if I try to put it in a mahitza and they don't want it, all the intelligent ones will leave.
Right.
So he said, it's up to them to put in the mahitza. That was his attitude. They want a mahitza good, but I'm not going to put it in because half of them will leave, more than half of them, especially the ones who have a brain in their head, are going to leave if I try to put in a mahitza.
But what about his relationship with women that off stage?